This is the Pest and Lawn Ginja. Thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to go over the key differences between lawn aeration and power raking. Let's go check it out. Now, to start out understanding the key differences between each one of these machines is understanding what thatch is. Now, granted, both these machines are claimed to be dethatchers. Now, if you look here, I've got a core sample and with a ton of thatch. This is about 3/4 inches of thatch. And you can see it's basically a giant root ball. It's got a lot of veins of roots in there that are kind of growing on top of each other. Now, there's really good news about this. This is where most of your decomposition is occurring. This is where most of your beneficial bacteria is forming. So you want to have a healthy thatch layer. What thatch is not, what most people think it is dead grass. And this is my whole point that I've been pushing for. Most people think that this right here is thatch. And so what people have been doing is they have been mowing with a mulching machine and leaving this all over the ground. Now, at higher altitudes, this does not decompose into the thatch layer, and this is what causes problems. Now, having a general understanding of what these machines are and what they do is going to help you make the right decision for the right application. So let's go check these machines out here real quick. On the left, we have the Bluebird Power Rake. On the right, we have the Ryan Lawn Air 5 machine. Now, these are my weapons of choice when I'm looking at these applications. Now, both of them kind of serve different purposes, but let's just take a quick glance at the machines. You'll notice that the Bluebird Power Rake kind of sits flat on the ground, and let's go ahead and look underneath. Now you'll see we've got these discs. Now these discs are just going to spin. They spin pretty quickly and they hit the ground. Now what that's going to do is that's going to pull up the debris that's sitting right on top of the soil. And that's the whole point of this machine. Don't overthink this machine. Now, taking a look at the Ryan Lawn Air 175 pounds, it's got two 25-pound weights right here that are completely removable, and it's mostly about weight distribution with this machine. This is the machine that is going to pull these little core plugs that most moms can't stand because the kids like to throw them. But this is fully removable and it's a pretty big weight. And so I'm going to the back of the machine here. It's completely different than the power rake. We have all these tines. Now they're cut so they go about 3 inches into the ground on average, and that's about what you need to get a good core aeration. There are so many benefits to mechanical aeration, but one of them is to decompact the soil. Now, this allows for more oxygen, water, minerals, and nutrients to enter deeper into the soil and allows the roots to chase them. Now, the one thing that I like to remind people about grass is the only thing it wants to do is to multiply. So, when you pull these plugs, it's going to basically push away and fill in the empty spaces. And that's why it's important. This grass is always trying to push outward, so it gives it a chance to do what grass does best, and that's to multiply. So the magical question, guys, how often should you be aerating your lawn? Well, it all comes down to soil type. If you have sandy soils, the best time to aerate is one time in the springtime. For those of you guys who have clay-based soil, you could aerate 2 to 3 times per year, and that's the recommended dosage. Now, if you're just going to be aerating one time a year, because that's all the budget holds for, one time in the fall is the best time to do it. To leave the plugs or not to leave the plugs, that is the question. But the answer might surprise you. This thatch layer holds a ton of micronutrients in it. The last thing you want to do is to strip these micronutrients from the soil. Also, for those of you guys who have clay-based soil and you pulled in a lot of topsoil, your topsoil sits on the top layer, so when you strip these plugs, you're just stripping your topsoil. Now in the case of my lawn, I'm actually using lawn aeration as a tool to help with my shallow root syndrome. My roots have kind of trained themselves to go upward because of daily watering and shallow watering. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to thin that thatch layer out, but I'm trying to get the roots stimulated enough to grow downward. Now providing the space and removing the compaction is what's going to open the ground up to allow those roots to want to go down. My suggestion is to get the lawn aerated before the ground temperatures reach 55 degrees in the springtime. This will allow you to get a good pre-emergent down so you don't have to deal with weed seeds coming down and germinating in these holes. The major point of using a mechanical aerator is to help with compaction. It is the quickest way that you can decompact a lawn, assuming you're getting some water down into the soil. So the question is how often should I be power raking? Well, the answer might surprise you. It's about every 3 to 5 years. We want to leave that accordion layer of thatch alone as best as we can. Proper watering is going to be your #1 thing. Watering 2 to 3 times a week as opposed to daily. More minutes, less days is your general rule of thumb. Now the other thing is mulching. If you are mulching properly, you shouldn't have a problem with thatch, but if you're just leaving dead grass behind and saying that you're mulching, you may have to power rake every single season depending on how much debris is left. Now, one thing that you can do to really help yourself out at the end of the season is to do an end of the season short mow when the outside temperatures have permanently gone below 50 degrees. This will allow you to cut the top of the crown off and to suck up a lot of that debris that your lawnmower has naturally left behind. Now another one of my favorite questions is how do I know it's time to power rake? Well, let me show you. So here's a quick way that you can tell if you need to power rake or not. You can see this area here. The grass blades are actually fairly green. Now when we get into it, we start pushing open, you can see all this dead matter inside, but more importantly, when we pinch it out, we get a significant amount of dead debris. Now you can see when you get a handful like this, it's time. Now if you were only to get this much or less, I would say leave it alone because this is decomposing matter that's very beneficial. Another way to tell if you've got a thatch problem is to purchase a thatching rake. Now this rake is going to help pull a lot of the debris to the surface to see if you guys have a problem. I like to do a 2 foot by 2 foot section, and if you get a significant amount of grass out, then you know you've got a problem. Now you can see instantly before your eyes the color change in this area. Now a lot of your color is being crowded not by thatch but by dead grass. Now a lot of you guys call this thatch, and there is some truth to it because you get root balls, which is part of the thatch layer, and the whole point to dethatching is to thin out the thatch layer. But for the most part, it removes debris from the surface and helps free up the soil so your fertilizers will pass and the water will also evaporate and you get that oxygen transfer, which promotes healthy growing. Now I put the dead grass back so I can kind of show you the significance of this dead grass. I just pulled that in that 2 by 2 foot section. It's a lot of matted grass. Now the problem that we face is your fertilizers are going to have a really rough time getting through this. Now you could band-aid it by using a granular fertilizer, which is what most people do, but your liquid fertilizers and your micronutrients in the liquid fertilizers, they are not going to penetrate this layer in my opinion. And that's why it's really important to remove this. So once you remove it, you can actually get to the soil. Now, just to show you guys, now that I've removed that dead grass, you can physically see the soil, which is a huge improvement to what it was before putting that back. There's no physical way that your fertilizer is going to be able to penetrate that. Now I know what you're thinking, hey, eventually they'll work their way through. Well, that is partially true with the granular, but with the liquids, they get bound up in this dead grass and they don't pass. If you get that layer of dead debris sitting on top, it's time to power rake. You don't want this to be in excess because it's going to cloud your color. But also, if you get too much of that debris up there, it's going to suffocate the thatch layer, and it doesn't allow it to breathe properly, and it chokes out the microbial action. But it also causes problems. It doesn't allow the evaporation to occur. It gets stuck in there, and then the sun comes down and bakes it and causes abnormal fungal activity. So when is the absolute best time to power rake? Well, that might surprise you, but it's going to be the fall time. It allows that bacteria to set back in, allows the lawn to rest over the winter time, ready for a new growing season. Now, if you miss that window in the fall time, first thing in the spring, before the ground temperatures get to 55 degrees, in my opinion, it's going to be the best time to get that done. Now, can you power rake when it's hot? Well, of course you can, absolutely. I'm living proof of it. If you guys haven't seen my channel, this is my lawn. That's exactly what I did. I power raked when it was 100 degrees outside. If you've got way too much of the sediment, way too much buildup, it's time to get rid of it so you can actually get everything breathing to get it to grow again. The most important part of the power rake is going to be the cleanup. Now, there's no sense in running the power rake if you're not going to clean it up properly, because you're just going to have the problem the very next fall or the very next spring. Now, in my opinion, these power rake machines, the cheaper end models below $3,000, they're only going to get 70 to 80% of the thatch or the debris that's sitting on top of the soil. So it's important to go after it a third pass with a rake or a thatch rake to remove the excess debris at the very end. So if you ask me which one of these machines does a better job at removing thatch, well, that's going to be your lawn aerator. It's my opinion that the power rake machine does a great job of removing debris. Now, it can thin out the top layers of the thatch, but it's really not going to go through the entire thatch layer. Now, another question I get quite often is, can I run both these machines on the same lawn on the same day? My opinion on this is pretty simple. Absolutely you can. The machine on the right here is going to get rid of the dead debris sitting on top of the soil. The machine on the left is actually going to get rid of the actual thatch and pull it up. Now, if it were me, I would run the power rake first, do the cleanup, and then run your core aeration second. The reason being is you don't want to miss out on those micronutrients getting back into the soil that are caught up in the actual thatch layer. You can clearly see just by looking at the two machines, they serve two completely different purposes. My opinion, the aerator is the only one that actually removes thatch completely. It's going to penetrate through all the layers. It's going to pull that up to the surface and provide a gapping space where it actually removes the thatch. Now, on the flip side, we do get some thatch thinning and thatch removal from the power rake, but it doesn't do the same job. Its primary objective is to free up debris that's causing issues with micronutrients and fertilizer from getting to the soil, and also oxygen and water transfer. If you guys have any questions or concerns, hit me up in the comment. Love to help you guys out, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And just remember, sharing is caring. Until next time, guys.